council meeting. It is my turn today to lead the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and I'm going to use the same prayer that I actually used last time. I had this opportunity to do this, and it starts this way. Leadership requires two virtues that seem very simple until they become very inconvenient: honesty and courage. As mayor and members of city council, we have earned the right to be here today by being elected. But along with that honor comes a duty of humility, integrity, and public service. So let's settle our hearts for just a moment in prayer. God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our city. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this as your sons and daughters, confident in your goodness and love. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As you can see, Councilman Riggs will not be able to be with us tonight, so this will be the governing body. We'll go to agenda item number 3. And this is a recognition public presentation, and I believe that Alex Smith, and Ms. Sue, please correct me if I'm wrong, that Alex Smith, for the County Coordinator for Conservative Services, Inc., is again unable to be with us tonight. Is that accurate? Okay, do we have anybody on staff that would like to speak to that, or are we going to move to agenda item 4?
No, he did apologize for missing the last one. He had the date incorrect, and this was a family emergency I believe for the night, so he apologizes, but he really wants to be here. And we've had some good dialogue with him about what we discussed on the 125%. I think he'll talk about some things when he comes to see him, but I want to know that he apologized.
Is there some way that we can have him here at the next one?
We'll give it a shot.
If he cannot be here, then he needs to send somebody. If not, then we're going to discuss a continuation of working with them if they cannot come to our meetings.
Yeah.
Well, only since it's been delayed for a couple meetings, but maybe he could write some kind of summary and email to us so we have an idea of what he's talking about. I mean, I thought it was where we consider the poverty threshold, right? But there's a number of things to consider there. Maybe he could outline those in an email so we'd be more educated to make a decision next time.
Okay. And I think he had other topics as well.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying. I thought this was sort of an overview of where we were with this process and where we needed to go, and that's why I think if...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. We were the ones that brought up the other as being an item we knew he would be asked about.
So they need to have some representation here,
Okay.
whether it's Mr. Smith or somebody that can speak to this stuff. That's the way I feel.
Okay.
So, Mr. Smith goes to speak. Okay, do we have anything else, Ms. Sue, on the presentations and the recognitions and public presentations? Okay, agenda item 4 is public comments. Do we have anybody that's asked to make or registered to make a public comment as it regards an agenda item this evening? Okay. In that case, we will move to agenda item 5, which is consideration of a motion to approve the consent agenda. I would ask council to please review the consent agenda and then present with a motion.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion? All in favor to approve the consent agenda, please go forward. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 6, overview of the hearing procedures regarding the granting or denial of an alcohol license. And just to preface this a little bit, the reason that this is on the agenda is because, as you all know, a new alcohol ordinance for the city of Statesboro went into effect July 1st, 2016. Tonight will be the actual first hearing that will be held as it regards the granting of an alcohol license, or the, I guess, the asking for one in a public hearing, and then we'll see what council does at that point. So I ask our city attorney, Mr. Leapart, to please kind of review what the hearing procedure would be, and how, since this is a new procedure for council to follow, and this is our first chance at doing so. So that's why you see it as an agenda item tonight, just to provide some clarity for council as we go through the process of doing this. So, Mr. Leapart.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought that helps. It's sort of the first time running through this. This is in your packet, so you can refer to it as we do these hearings and today going forward. Up here, you see the subject matter for the hearing, and the subject matter today, you see it says, in determining whether an alcoholic beverage license shall be granted, transferred, or issued to the new owner in any location, the mayor and city council shall, in the interest of public safety and welfare, hear evidence at the public hearing relevant to the following. You basically have 10 factors you can consider, and they are listed. And they not only involve the applicant, it's the reputation, character, trade, business associations, and past business ventures of the applicant, owner, designated manager, or any other person associated with the business. And that sort of runs through most of these. Mainly it's the people involved in the business and how they've conducted their alcohol businesses, previous violations of alcohol beverage laws. That applies not only to the applicant, but all those associated with the business. The manner of conducting prior alcohol beverage businesses, again, applies to the applicant, owner, managers, or other persons associated with the business. It's not only the people, it's the location. Is there going to be some sort of adverse impact on the location that is shown by the evidence? Are there too many number of licenses in the trading area? You can take that into consideration, whether there's an overdensity of bars and whether that's creating any problems. Whether the applicant or anyone involved with the business has ever had any kind of license or alcohol license revoked. Similar to 7. For the location, does the prior incident of the location of those facts still relevant today, considering a granted license? And prior incidents at the location. If that location has been licensed before, or there are a significant number of incidents requiring police intervention within a square block of that area that require a lot of police attention. These are all, and there are 2 more. You know, if you owe any taxes, or you're either your zoning, or you're sort of not taking care of your business with the city, you can take that into consideration and weigh that factor as you determine is appropriate. And you can take into consideration, again, the location, the schools, colleges, religious institutions, libraries, recreation areas, in the vicinity of the premises that cause minors or those under 21 years of age to frequent the immediate area. These are 10 factors. These are sort of things that you'll hear evidence on, and the evidence that's supposed to be presented today should be relevant to any of these factors. And basically the idea is you weigh those factors, you weigh those facts, you apply to these criteria, and make a determination as to whether they weigh for or against the grant of the license. Then you get down to B. And this allows you some discretion that if you decide to grant a license, but there may be particular problems associated with that location, you can impose conditions on the exercise of the privilege granted by the license to the extent necessary to minimize any adverse effects that are shown here today. Both D and E are sort of the state law requires this, that if you deny a license or sort of place these conditions on you, you need to do that that in written opinion and reduce the opinion to writing and adopt it as the findings of the council. And that's a requirement of the Alcoholic Beverage Code of Georgia. So that is, in essence, the subject matter of the hearing. And the general procedure for the hearing broadly is defined here. So, this is what allows you to hear evidence and subpoena witnesses, and you generally should conduct this hearing in compliance with due process requirements, and that's also a requirement of the actual state alcoholic beverage law, that the applicants be afforded basic protections of due process, which is they'd be allowed to confront the evidence presented against them and ask questions of any witnesses that are put up that speak against their license or anything like that. The rules of evidence don't really apply, and the rule against hearsay doesn't apply. We are not a court of the state. We are simply a city council carrying out a quasi-judicial function pursuant to our home rule powers. That is, and I think what's important to note here is what's been created here is a record for it to potentially be reviewed by the Superior Court of Bullitt County. The decision here is a quasi-judicial decision, much like a zoning decision. And the record that's created here today is subject to review by the Superior Court. And the standard for review of that decision is here. You need to understand is that the Superior Court is going to give you quite a deal of latitude to grant and deny alcohol licenses. All they want to know, if they were to look at any decision rendered by this body, is if you followed your procedures and you followed the law. And then the next question they'll ask, is there any evidence to support the decision that was made by the city council? They're going to reweigh the evidence or say maybe I would have called it differently, or maybe I wouldn't have done that, I would have done this if I was sitting there. And they're not going to do that. They're simply going to look and say, was there any evidence presented to council, any fact and evidence that they could make this decision from? They're not going to relitigate the case. They're simply going to look and see, did you follow your procedure? Or is there some basis in fact for the decision? They're not going to second guess your judgment. And I think people lose sight of the fact that the testimony given here today and all the documents are subject to, when you're testifying something under oath, is subject to review by a court. It's similar. You've got to be honest and forthcoming, or you're subject to perjury-like penalties in Title 16. And those are provided for here. Any person knowingly and willfully falsifies, conceals, or covers up any trick or device is basically a felony to give. It is testifying in any other court. Perjury-like testimony or evidence or documents or anything like that. So that's kind of an overview of what we're doing here today. Any questions on that?
Does anybody have a question for Alan before we get started? He was kind enough to kind of prepare an opening statement, which was sort of, it does explain how the process will go, so that everyone knows how the process will go. So I'll go ahead and read that. If anybody has any questions before we get started, we can do that.
I'll reserve my questions till after we go through.
That'll be fine. I think one of the things you're going to hear in here when I begin with these opening remarks is the way this thing is laid out is for once all the evidence has been presented, then at that point, council will have the opportunity to question as they see fit. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, now we'll move. Agenda item 7 is the public hearing and consideration of a motion to approve an alcohol license application for the Library Statesboro LLC, Justin Clements, 125 Gatta Drive, Statesboro, Georgia. First thing I'm going to do is say, do I have a motion to open this public hearing? Any discussion? All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is opened. Now we will move on to conducting a public hearing pursuant to section 6-13 of the Alcohol Beverage Ordinance of the City of Statesboro. The purpose of this proceeding is so the City Council can hear evidence relevant to the 10 standards provided for in section 6-13 of the Alcohol Ordinance, which Mr. Lee Park just referred to and went over, and determine whether that evidence weighs for or against the grant to the license. Those 10 standards have been provided to each member of council in their council packet for review and consideration during this hearing. Based on the evidence presented, council will then have 3 options. They can grant the license, deny the license, or grant the license subject to certain conditions tailored to minimize any adverse effects on public safety and welfare. If council denies the license or places certain condition on the license, a written opinion will need to be prepared stating the reason or reasons the license was denied or conditions placed on the license. That written opinion will then need to come back before council in the form of a resolution to be voted on and approved by council. It is my understanding that the city clerk or her designee is responsible for the investigation of the alcoholic beverage license applications, and that the city clerk's designee is Captain James Winsky of the Statesboro Police Department. Is that correct, Ms. Sue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is the applicant represented by an attorney?
Yes, Mayor. I'm Jay Dell here on behalf of the applicant.
Okay. Before we proceed with this hearing, I would like to establish the general procedure these hearings will follow. Only one person at a time shall stand at the podium. Any witness called to testify in this matter shall come to the podium alone and be sworn in as a witness for direct examination, cross-examination, and redirect examination. Anyone providing sworn testimony today should understand that they are providing testimony in a quasi-judicial hearing subject to review by the Superior Court of Bullitt County, and that the criminal penalties for providing false statements or writings to a city government attached to the testimony and evidence provided here today. Those penalties are provided for in OCGA 16-10-20. A verbatim record of this proceeding is being made both through audio recording through the microphones as well as audio-video recording by the cameras in the back of the room in the corner. First, I will allow the applicant to speak in favor of the grant of the license and offer any evidence, including calling witnesses and offering documentary evidence he would like to offer in support of the grant of the license. Second, I will allow Captain Winsky to offer facts and evidence from his investigation, including calling any witnesses and offering documentary evidence he would like. The applicant will be allowed the opportunity to cross-examine or redirect any witness or document offered in this hearing by Captain Winsky. Next, I will inquire if any other department of the city has facts or evidence the department would like considered by the city council in this matter. The department head will come forward and present the facts and evidence they would like considered. The applicant will be allowed the opportunity to cross-examine the evidence offered by the department head. Next, I will ask if there are any members of the public present who would like to speak in favor of the grant of the license. Then I will ask if there are any members of the public present who would like to speak against the grant of the license. And of course, members of City Council will be allowed the opportunity to question any witness offered in this hearing. However, to keep the hearing moving forward, I would suggest council wait until the conclusion of the above before beginning to ask questions of witnesses in this proceeding. If council has questions for any witness to the proceeding, we can recall them to the lectern for further testimony. And then I will ask Captain Winsky if he has any closing remarks that he would like to make, and then the applicant will have a chance to make closing remarks, and then council will at that point have a period of deliberation. So, the applicant is Mr. Justin Clements. Mr. Clements, can you please come forward to the lectern? Please state your name.
Justin Clements.
Will he be sworn in as well at this time? Okay, please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Do you acknowledge then that you have been sworn in?
Yes.
Okay, at this time, would you please speak in favor of having the license granted to you?
Mr. Mayor, may I address the council before he speaks?
That's up to our attorney. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
would like to address the council, and at this point, we were a little bit, we were unaware of the nature of today's meeting, in fact, that it was going to be a public hearing with opportunity to present evidence. I was under the misbelief that we were going to be answering questions from y'all, not presenting evidence to approve the application. As such, I believe we don't have the evidence right now that y'all are probably looking for, and I would request that we possibly table this until next council meeting so we can prepare and present a evidence and evidence hearing.
I don't have an issue with that. Does council have an issue with tabling this till the next hearing? I will say
Is there
this.
something incomplete in his application?
No, I think the application is complete. The application is complete as far as we're concerned, because we went ahead and sent it around to department heads to review. So the things that we're asking for at this time, I believe, were enough that we felt like the application was complete.
Do any department heads have an issue? Do council should be aware?
I was made aware of one issue, Mr. Boyle, and I was here prepared to address that issue. And I've asked Ms. Garland if there were any other issues, and she told me that she was unaware of any other issues. So that's why I feel that I'm a little bit unprepared for a full evidentiary hearing, but I'm not sure what the exact issues are at this point.
I understand. Normally,
Should we see if we have any?
no,
I mean,
we're gonna follow the process that's listed here, which means that we would go through the process of having Captain Winsky present whatever he has to present, and vice versa. But
I mean, we would love to proceed today, and if Captain Winsky has some evidence to present that is against the application, I would like to address that, and if it's something that we're not aware of, at that point, I would like to reserve the table and come back to the next council meeting to address it. I'm just concerned if we move forward at this point and a denial is granted, then it's that, a denial, and it's on the record, and going from there is a downhill slide.
well, let me ask one thing real quick, just to clarify something, because I hear what you're saying. I don't want to get in the middle of a proceeding and say, oh, and by the way, we didn't know about this, so can we stop? That's not, and I know why you don't want to do that. I understand that. Alvin, in that case, is it at this point in time proper to table it and say, share that or no? Just go ahead and tell me.
Well, I think you're gonna go, you have the hearing or don't have the hearing.
Okay, well, that I agree with, but,
So, I don't think there's anything wrong with continuing the hearing. If
okay.
That's what y'all want to do, and, be prepared to address these issues. I don't think, you were asking if Winsky should put up his side of the case, and then.
Oh, no, I don't. We're not getting to the middle of a hearing and decide that we're gonna stop because we don't like how it's going. So that's not gonna be an option. Either we have it or we don't.
Kind of missing, this is almost like it's a criminal hearing and he applied and
What's
he
the
did
problem?
something wrong.
I will tell you what I understand the issue to be is there was some incorrect statements on the application. The application provided that as far as financing, there was going to be $30,000 financing, and specifically asked if there are any partners involved with the bar. The answer was given no, which is a true statement. However, within the financing documents, the bank or lending entity was entitled to receive 20% of the profits of the business. Under your definition, that was defined as a partnership, which my client didn't understand. There was no intent to be a partnership. They're not a partnership. We've since then changed the financing for the $30,000. There's no profit sharing. It's strictly a monthly interest payment. So it was my understanding there were some concerns about whether or not my client had lied on the application. Because
So that's, I guess my thought with that is that's not going to change 2 weeks from now. The way the application was initially submitted, you're gonna have to address it now or address it in 2 weeks, I suppose. It sounds like you've already addressed it.
Well, if that's the issue, we're ready to move forward on that. We called out and tried to reach if there were any other issues, and we're told that they're unaware of any other issues. So
I don't know what to tell you at this point, I guess.
Well, Alvin, is there any way for him to find out if there are issues outside of the hearing? Or does that evidence have to be presented at the hearing? And if that's the case, then how is he gonna find out about the problems if the only place he can find out is during the hearing?
I think what happens is the city turns the application over to the department heads and the PD, and they've been asked if there are any questions. I think Captain Winsky conducts an investigation and just brings to council what he's found for y'all to consider. He has, and the applicant has an opportunity here to confront that evidence and respond to it and say, well, that's this or that's.
Without any prior knowledge to it though, right?
There's no discovery statute.
Well, it's not like a criminal case where you go in and everybody shares everything, you turn in an application, they look into the application, they come back and say, explain this on the application or don't, if there's anything to explain.
I don't know what the investigation, I mean, that evidence, all these facts get presented up for y'all to consider, so you get a full picture of what's going on. The applicant, the department heads know, the applicant has the opportunity to respond to those facts, and if they want to ask for a continuance later, they come back and present some other information, they can do that. There may be nothing in the investigation, there may be things they found out that y'all want to know about, and the applicant can find out about it and ask for some more time to respond to it.
So there is a point in the proceeding that the applicant could ask for a continuance.
Ask for a continuance at any time.
Okay,
So,
okay.
it may not, that may be a good way to go. We've never done this before. This is a new procedure, so.
But it's not like going to court where everybody's got to share evidence, assuming that there's something to share before you go in. It's just, this is what we found, we researched your application, can you address whatever it is we found? Assuming that there is something or there's not, we don't know.
But it is like Florida to the degree that the state alcohol beverage laws require the applicant to have the right to cross-examine the evidence presented against them. So we have to conduct it in a hearing-like process. It can't just be a sort of everybody rushing up and saying what they want to say for and against the applicant. If you do that, you deny the applicant his right and ability to cross-examine the evidence. So it's got to be done in a orderly hearing-like fashion to protect due process rights of the applicant. So this method that seems like court should seem like court, or we're not doing what the state law requires us to do with hearing evidence to grant or deny an alcohol license. What we're doing is creating a record here that if reviewed by a Superior Court judge would comply with the due process requirements of the alcoholic beverage laws of the state. I know it's a little formal, but
So you tell me every alcohol license that's granted in the state of Georgia is going through this same process?
they have to have a right to a hearing.
Okay.
So you could designate a,
So that doesn't say you have to require a hearing, right?
That's correct. This is,
There's a difference between a right and a requirement.
our ordinance that requires a hearing.
So the point is that when somebody applies, they have to come in front of us, tell us why they're applying. We have a structured way to present all the information. You then get to ask questions. People get to say that are neighbors or not neighbors or whatever, why they are for it or against it, and then council has all the information as to whether or not to grant it.
And the applicant has a right to confront that evidence that's brought up here today. So
Or the person that doesn't want to have it next door,
And
if that were to be the case. But that gives everybody the opportunity to do that, and that's the structure for doing it. So I guess at this point, you kind of know what we're doing.
yes.
Is it something y'all want to continue with, or you don't want to
Can
continue?
we move us down on the agenda so I can consult with my client
Absolutely.
and come back?
Okay.
Thank you.
I got to, what do I do about closing this public hearing? Close it and reopen it?
Table it.
I think we can take it.
table it. Tabling actually means you are going to address it later.
But I can leave the hearing itself open.
A motion to table the public hearing.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to table the public hearing?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed. So, just so we're looking at the agenda, we'll get a report. Let's look at you being coming after agenda item 10, okay? All right, fair enough.
Thank you.
Then you'll need a motion to take it off.
Do what?
You need a motion to take it off.
Well, we can think. Thank you. What would I do without you? All right, agenda item 8. I'm sorry, Patrice, I guess you bore Bill. Advisory Board. Go ahead, Ms. Jones.
Yes, ma'am. On behalf of the Alcohol Advisory Board for Statesboro, we have a couple of our members here today, Woody Pumphrey and Jim Tidwell. I'd like to offer 2 recommendations from the advisory board to City Council today. Number 1, we recommend to amend the alcohol ordinance to allow drive-through alcohol sales subject to existing rules and regulations. The board plans to look at these rules and regulations and may suggest additions specifically focused on safeguarding drive-through alcohol sales. Our second recommendation is that we recommend the TIPS training curriculum be the only accepted training curriculum for the city of Statesboro at this time. The advisory board reviewed the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors Incorporated and Serve Safe curriculums and voted to recommend that only TIPS be accepted for the sake of accountability and consistency of training in Statesboro. I'd like to give you a few more details about this recommendation. The advisory board compared and studied all 3 curriculums: the Serve Safe, the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors, and the TIPS curriculums. And we found that the curriculums are pretty similar. There are some more focus on laws, and then others focus more on skills training. Mr. William Lord presented that the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors curriculum can be customized according to the desires of the council. Concerning Serve Safe, our concern is that it seems that this is mostly done through online training, and it is open to the accountability of whoever's giving that training. So each establishment may do that differently and may have different standards. So if it's online, you may have one establishment who holds very strictly to making sure all of their new employees conduct this training in a way of integrity, and then you may have others who may or may not. There's really no way to be accountable for that online training, so we had some concerns about that. Questions came concerning how the curriculums were administered, specifically for the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors. One example is on August 8th, Mr. Lord told us that no one had failed the course with him teaching it. He described how he worked with a young lady who had trouble with the math until she got it, and he suggested that participants could take the test over and over until they passed. And then in our meeting on September 12th, Mr. Lord changed that statement after hearing a presentation from Officer Jeff Thompson about the TIPS curriculum. He then told us that participants are only allowed to take the exam once per course. This change caused concern for some board members about the integrity of how the curriculum is shared. So again, it's not the curriculum itself, but we have questions about the accountability and how that curriculum is given to participants. In addition to these recommendations, the following items will be discussed at the next Alcohol Advisory Board meeting on October 10, 2016. Number 1, a proposal to amend the definition of catered events. We continue to explore that. Number 2, a proposal to require TIPS training for convenience store employees. Number 3, a proposal to allow only in-person TIPS training to fulfill the training requirement and not the online TIPS training. And finally, number 4, a discussion of the pricing section of the ordinance. We had some discussion and decided that there is some clarification required for that section, so we're working on that.
Okay. So the two recommendations, I suppose, that came out of what you just said, Dean Jackson, was the one about the 2 that are on our agenda today.
Yes.
Or the one about the 2 training. If you don't mind, tell me again what your concerns were with the Serve Safe. I know that's agenda item 2 for us, but do you
Sure.
mind kind of recapping that a little bit for me?
Sure. So it was presented to us that Serve Safe is a program that is delivered online to new employees. So there is not a serve-safe person who comes to a venue and teaches participants in that way. Now, we have some establishments who presented that they have managers and others who are responsible for making sure new employees learn this material. But it was also presented by some board members that not every establishment may give the training in that way. So really, when one of our officers shows up, all they see is that there's a certificate that someone completed the training, but if it's online training, anybody can complete it. There's no accountability to making sure every employee completes that training. In comparison to that, in the TIPS training, we have third parties. So we have people who are trained to give this education outside of each of the establishments that can account for who was in attendance, who participated in the training, and then the testing is sent away to be graded, and then we receive those results back. So there's more accountability there.
Okay, and on agenda item 9, what again were the concerns on that one?
Again, we were not clear on how, again, the question was about the testing and how participants are held responsible for knowing the material. And we felt like we were told two different things. On August 8th, we were told no one has ever failed. And I am given an example of a young woman who I worked with, and she finally got the math and she passed. And then in our September meeting, after the TIPS presentation, where Officer Thompson said, you take the class, you take the test one time, and that's it. If you don't pass it, you have to come back and take the class again. It seemed that answer changed to say it's the same thing for our curriculum as well. So we were not clear on how participants are held accountable for truly knowing the information, and not just given a pass that you participated in the training.
Because I know that the training that is mentioned in agenda item 9, there was some talk, at least when it was going to go in front of y'all's committee, that training would be customized based on our ordinance. Were any of those discussions held during your?
Yes.
Okay.
So Mr. Lord did present several times that he would customize the training to whatever the requirements of this council would be. But again, regardless of how the curriculum is customized, we just want to make sure that each participant is held accountable for actually learning the material and not just given a pass.
So that was really.
That was the concern.
Do you remember were both of these, I guess you put in there that it was, let me back up, that y'all recommended not be passed to be used?
Right.
Was the vote unanimous by the committee on both of these? Do you remember what the vote actually was?
The vote concerning curriculum was 5-1. We have 6.
5-1 to not approve of them.
It was one motion, and the motion was that the TIPS curriculum be the only acceptable training at this time.
And that was voted.
And that was 5-1. And the concern for the one, as I understand it, is the curriculums are very similar.
Okay. So y'all were more concerned with delivery of it, not content is what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. The content is very important, and then we did do our research to make sure that was sure, and that does seem to be sure. But I think we believe it's useless to require the training if we don't have accountability measures in place to make sure people are effectively receiving the training.
Does council have any questions for you?
I do, Dean Jackson, having participated, I think I've said before in these meetings, in the serve-safe alcohol piece. I appreciate what you're saying, what the group's concerns are about the accountability, but I do know this, with serve-safe alcohol, you have to have an instructor proctor, so an individual that completes a certain level of classical responsibility to administer the test. And then I would ask, beyond that, isn't our compliance officer, to some degree, the accountability piece, or the business And I asked that in this fashion, or this is the way I can relate to it.
Mhm.
We do with our health inspections the very same way.
Mhm.
At the Universal Government Service Entities, we use the service safe piece for food. And certainly you could ask the same thing about accountability, but the health department is our piece that makes it, solidifies it.
Sure.
If our people are doing what they're supposed to, we get a rate that's acceptable. If not, we obviously have to work on that. So is not our compliance officer that accountability piece?
You bring up an excellent point, and we did have that discussion. So my understanding is our compliance officers, when they show up, they just need to see documentation that each of these employees have completed. Now, our questions came in, how do we know they completed? Now, the answer to that in our discussion was when problems come up, then we know, and we address those problems. So I think that relates to what you are saying. You know that the training is inadequate if problems arise. And I think in our conversations as a board, we thought the accountability was important. So absolutely bring up an excellent point.
And also I would ask, I guess there's a level of, you go to an online class at the university or
Sure.
anywhere, where's the accountability? If there's some level of, concern as if it's that individual or not. I'm just talking out loud when I make that statement.
Well, for me, I'm really less concerned with how somebody did on a test. We certainly want to put them through the class, but what matters is what happens when you're ringing up that customer. That's the only thing that honestly that really matters for us is that at the time of sale that they're doing what they need to be doing. And I think to your point, that's what our alcohol compliance officer is for, is to enforce that piece.
Right. Well, and the responsibility, truthfully, is on their business. The business is going to be more concerned than anyone because it's their financial well-being at stake.
Absolutely.
Any further questions for Dean Jackson?
The question reference to the cost of the tips versus the other models.
Say, I didn't know.
What's the cost?
The cost, that is a good question. There is a cost, and I don't remember off the top of my head the cost of the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors. I believe Mr. Lord is here, so he'll have a chance to present to you as well. And for ServSafe, I'm not aware of the cost at all. We know that the TIPS curriculum is offered here in our community for free to the businesses and to all of the employees that participate through the Bullet Alcohol Drug Council. But there is a cost for the business and possibly for the employees if that cost is shifted to them.
I guess that's it. Thank you for your hard work.
Yes.
I think y'all's meetings, I understand, go fairly long. So we appreciate your diligence. Thank you, Dean Jackson. With that report, council, I'd like to move to agenda item 9, which is consideration of a motion to approve or deny the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors, Inc., also known as RAS, for the Alcohol Server Training Program. Mr. Moore, would you like to obviously answer the concerns?
Yeah, I
Dean
would do.
Jackson and present.
Thank you for hearing me today. I'm William Lord. I represent the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors. We're a company here in the southeast headquartered in Atlanta. I'm a local here from Scrubbin County. And I do have a number of concerns. I understand that it was a 5-to-1 vote against my program being recommended for City Council. Just to address a few things I heard Patrice say. There was some information. I never changed my story. Maybe it was confusing. Maybe we should review the tapes from the advisory board meetings. The first meeting, a lot of questions and discussion. However, people do fail our class all the time. The young lady she mentioned failed 4 times, and I did coach her, but she had to come back to 4 successive classes. And I can't stop people from coming back to class or logging on and taking the class again. On the online one, they pay once and they can log in and keep watching the training video and keep taking the test as many times as they want to. But we have a high standard there. It has to be 90% or they fail. So I've had people fail that 12, 13 times and call me complaining that there's something wrong with the test. And I just have to keep watching the video. And eventually they usually get it. But that's with any online program. One thing I noted with Patrice's testimony is quality of training. That was why consistency, quality of training. There's a problem there. I was told the TIPS online program was also approved, and just like her arguments for service ed, that goes out the window, that argument, because if TIPS online training is approved, you can't control who's taking that, and what's going on with that training as well. I did offer to customize. Again, at the advisory board meeting, all was in agreement that our curriculums are largely the same. We're teaching pretty much the same stuff. There was no argument there. I didn't hear any testimony. The only reason I was ever given why they voted 5-1 against my program is they just were comfortable with what they got. No one brought up testing to me. This is the first time I've heard it. But as I offered to customize the actual training, I can customize the testing. Any standard you want. We can make it 100 questions. You got to make 90 or better, and you only get to take it once. Whatever you want that standard to be. You can't do that with TIPS. You have to mail those tests off, and it's a procedure. But the online program grades it all online, and they can download their certificate. So I'm not sure about an argument of being able to control the learning environment if you're going to allow online training from any company, including us, TIPS, ServSafe. And we're all teaching the same stuff. I have the advantage of being able to customize it. Teach your local laws, your happy hour laws. I can do all that and test them on those very happy hour laws. You're only going to get maybe state laws with the national companies. So the first advisory board meeting was fairly innocuous. Testing, they took my materials, same materials I gave the all to review. And they reviewed them. I got the second one. It went a little differently. I wasn't really prepared for my experience. Just before my second appearance, I had the pleasure of listening to a city employee, an officer, who gets paid by the Bullitt County Drug and Alcohol Association to administer the TIPS classes. Now, he had a big PowerPoint presentation, his program, my program, all lined up, and why his program is better, and then why he's a better person to administer training for the Statesboro area. This, I had some problems. This is probably my greatest problem I have with the process. You have a paid city employee, someone who has an office of power in the community, actively lobbying to get my program not approved. He even gave a long talk on localism and what localism meant to him. It was a little disconcerting because he profits from teaching the program, being the sole provider, and he lobbied. His program's already approved. He's teaching the classes. He's already being financially rewarded for teaching these classes. The whole presentation was about being the sole provider and what was wrong with my program. And that was the second advisory board meeting. I didn't really have time to prepare a rebuttal. However, that was the second advisory board meeting. And I did have some support. One person voted for recommendation. 5 did not. And it's sort of a conflict of interest. This is why judges recuse themselves in matters where there's a conflict of interest. So I thought it was a little, improper to have someone who profits from the program, a city employee, an officer who might pull over an advisory board member at some point for a speeding violation or whatnot, who is lobbying against the private citizens, right to get their program approved. That being said, maybe the more essential point is, after the first city council meeting, I had the pleasure of speaking with some of the nice ladies at the Bullitt County Drug and Alcohol Association. They made an excellent point that I can't compete with free. And I agree with that. I charged, to answer your earlier question, $20 per serve. In this market, Savannah, we charge different markets. But we feel that's a fair price for a good product. Pretty reasonable. But it's not free. Now, obviously, program that is being administered here now is free to the public, but it's not free. It goes to a national company, TIPS, mailed out of state. That money goes out of state. When he was talking about localism, he wasn't talking about the company, because that's a national company. He was talking about him, I guess, because he's the local resource that contracts and stuff should be awarded. So the interesting thing is I can't make money at present. Even if y'all approve my program, you will still, people rather go free than pay me $20. Here's the thing though. It won't always be free. That funding will go away probably one day. I've seen it before. I deal with governments all over the Southeast. This happened in Athens. They used to use the Georgia Tech free program. It was free. It was funded, grant funded. A program that taught responsible alcohol sales and service training. It was created by students at Georgia Tech. Picked up a free program for several years. Well, after a while, Athens required server training and bar cards for servers. The chief of police recommended the server program, the Georgia Tech free program. They lost the funding. Nobody wanted to keep it up on a server and administer it and monitor that and fix it when it broke. So the funding went away. And eventually, times might get tight at government, funding changes, different politicians come in office. That's all taxpayer money. Grant money usually disappears at some point. That free program may disappear. At that point, I might make some money here. But I wasn't asking to get my program approved as a sole provider. I just want to be approved with everyone else. And if that grant funding goes away next year, 2 years from now, if my program is approved, I can keep that ball running for you guys. And I'll be happy to customize that in any way you see fit. So I respectfully ask you to approve my program, or just tell me what hoops I have to jump through to get my program approved. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Hang on. Robert, were you at the advisory board meeting? Randy was? So, was there a comparison put up between that?
I don't know if it was a straight across comparison, but the discussion was, as was mentioned previously, was about the online testing. And my memory is that TIPS had the ability to do that, but that's not something that they were going to use. They were still going to have the direct interaction. So that's my memory of what happened there. Is it was available from TIPS, but TIPS didn't make that available as one of the ways that they were going to actually teach the class. It was still going to be a regular class where someone would be present. It wasn't going to be an online.
At the second advisory board meeting, I asked specifically, is TIPS online accepted? And it was, because in the ordinance it states TIPS.
I was at that second meeting, and my memory is that it was available. They were not going to use it. That was not going to be a part of their program.
You say that you're talking about the bulk alcohol.
Well, they're not using it, but let's say someone in Savannah took the class online. I was told at that meeting that they would accept that as valid training because it's TIPS, and that's what your ordinance specified. It didn't say in-person classes. I've actually asked for the recording so I can go back to some of this. It was last week.
I would suggest that we have one of the officers who is more familiar with this than my one meeting. If you want to come on up and address that, I think that would be helpful.
Captain James Winston, Statesboro Police Department. I've attended both of those meetings. I attended both of the meetings. There was a PowerPoint presentation that was put on by Deputy Jeff Thompson with Bullitt County Sheriff's Office. He was not a city county that put a PowerPoint together, and he had some comparison slides in his PowerPoint between different programs that are known, such as ServSafe and Mr. Lord's program and TIPS. There was a comparison PowerPoint done. Now, as far as the TIPS online training, the current ordinance says that tips or an approved, other approved training is by mayor and council. And currently, the only one that is approved is tips. We have people that have completed the tips online training because you don't have to do that through Bullock Alcohol and Drug Council. You can do that online and pay the fee and take the test and bring the certificates such as for voucher permits or whatever, and we have issued those in accordance with the online training because that was always been approved in the ordinance. The other ones that are trying to get approved are up for consideration. Any other questions?
So what you're saying, just for clarification, that in the past, it's not been an issue to have a tips certificate from online training?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It was the board's recommendation that they no longer accept, and I think that's what Mr. Treese mentioned to y'all, that they no longer wanted y'all to accept an online training, but we currently do. They're wanting to change that portion to have it just tips training, and no online. You gotta be in person. It's my understanding.
So that request is a little bit different from what we're doing here, because that's saying you gotta change the ordinance to be specific to it. An online class would not be acceptable, because our ordinance does not say that now.
It does not say that.
It does not. So, that would be a change in how
And some of
business
the
is
rules
done.
and regulations side
That is
of the
correct.
ordinance, and not the actual reading of the
Okay.
ordinance, but the rules and regulations side. Any other questions?
Thank you. And there was a PowerPoint presentation with 200 people. And this was like directly before I presented.
I'm just curious, Mr. Lord, not honestly that it matters, this is just really, I'm just curious. What percentage of the folks that take your class take it online?
Company-wide, the minority. Savannah, about 60%.
So the majority of Savannah take it online?
And about 64.
Okay.
This convenience. I recommended against it, but City Savannah approved, and they don't just approve my online program, instead serve, say, anyone can take it within a year about your application for your bar card is good. So the only reason we offer it is because our competitors, we have to be competitive.
Okay. Does council have any questions for Mr. Lord? Does council want to have any discussion before I ask for a motion?
Sorry, just for clarification, do you do both in, premise and online?
The majority of our training is on premise. I'm teaching 3 private classes in Savannah this Thursday, one on Sunday. I teach classes all over Atlanta. I'll be at California Dreams, Spanish Fort, Alabama this Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Each an in-person class.
You are living the dream, Mr. Lord.
I don't know, I slept on the Dallas Fort Worth airport floor last night.
Well, in lieu of asking for a motion to approve or deny, I'm just going to ask for a motion to approve. If there's no further discussion by council or question. Do I have a motion to approve the Training Institute for Responsible Vendors, Inc., also known as RES, for the alcohol server training program, as listed in our ordinance 6-10, section 8?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion?
Jeff, do you want to limit that to on premise or just?
So you can do that too, so.
I'll put it in motion if it. That's what I said.
Well, I mean, you can put it in the motion that you're changing the ordinance. You're basically changing, the ordinance says,
Limiting is whenever you don't limit everybody.
that's exactly right. That's why I have an issue with that. No?
No, I didn't get it.
The question was, you want to qualify the motion by saying it has to be taught on premise, and I said that this allows for just vendors in our ordinance.
The way to address changes like that is all the rules and regulations in the back, because every time you amend the ordinance, there's a lot of cost associated with that. So we have rules and regulations in the back that can be brought back and modified and changed to deal with sort of the minutia of the ordinance and clarify certain meanings. And that's what the rules and regulations are. So if you wanted to limit or expand or anything like that, for the tips training, you could modify the rules and regulations without having to amend the entire ordinance.
So if this motion were to go as is, you can come back and amend the rules and regulations if you saw fit to say it would have to be done on site. But would you not, would you do that through the motion or come back at a later time?
Come back with a resolution to
Okay.
approve.
Which would change the rule for everyone equally. Yeah. That's, yeah.
So, the
So I
motion,
rescind my motion.
so I have a second, do I have any discussion? All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 10, consideration of a motion to approve or deny serve safe for the alcohol serve training program. Is Mr. Schmidt here?
Yes.
Dan Schmidt with Applebee's.
So would you like to address the concerns that Ms. Jackson and the advisory committee brought forward?
Kind of counter to everything else we just heard. The reason we were sparked an interest in the first place because the way the ordinance was written said, tips or another approved program. Applebee's, we have an approved in-house program, being Serve Safe, that we've used for many years. And we originally came to the first alcohol board to see if that program would be certified. I understand the questions of accountability, but to your point, sir, that responsibility should fall back on the managers in the business. You can question accountability with any kind of testing that's out there, whether it's online or you have in-house proctors or teachers with another agenda or whatever else. I mean, if you're going to question that, I don't know how far you want to go. But our Serve Safe program is, the curriculum is in line with what I think the county's looking for. In talking to some of the officers, we were given the impression that the county ordinance was really just pushing some sort of training being done because of some, the littler guys, the smaller bars and restaurants that didn't have a training program, and Applebee's already does, so we were fighting to get that approved.
FYI, it's the city, not the county.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. I just want you to know that the city's going to approve, it's not the county.
I'm a city hall.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
So is Serve Safe used throughout the corporation?
Yes, sir. All of our Applebee's use it.
And would Applebee's have to approve something other than Serve Safe, I take it? Just out of curiosity.
In other words, would Applebee's have to approve tips?
Oh, no, it would supersede, I mean, honestly, we would still continue our Serve Safe. We have another in-house program that we run in unison with Serve Safe, which isn't part of the question today. But then this would just be a third level of alcohol training that we require all of our servers to go to. So.
Well, Jeff, you have a lot of experience with Serve Safe, isn't that correct?
Yeah.
Did you have it when you had Archibald's? No?
Well, yeah, for the food fees.
No, alcohol use.
That's the first.
So what's been your experience with Serve Safe?
Well, again, as I expressed earlier, I think it's a very thorough program. I think my exposure or experience, and that's just with the two of them, just reading and studying, is that they're somewhat similar. They're very similar, in fact, from my perspective. Some might argue differently, but I think they're very similar. And, again, we can argue the online piece, but if that's the case, we probably need to do away with online education completely. I just think it's forward thinking. It's what.
Don't let your bosses fear you say that.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's. But I think it's the way the majority of the people that we're teaching are going to learn nowadays, or they're accustomed to this, and they understand the responsibility. I don't, certainly there will always be those that abuse the privilege, but I just think it's the way we do things nowadays. And I think the accountability comes from the business. Nobody has more to lose than the business.
Agreed.
At the base of it, it's an accredited training program, and we have a way to show proof if a compliance officer came in that our employees went through the training. We meet most of those requirements, but
It may be that as time goes, if we see, if you come in with folks selling inappropriately, maybe you will be required then for them to take tips on it.
absolutely.
You know, I mean, that's an option. If they come back with issues.
That's certainly.
Sell underage or whatever.
And I certainly don't need to discount the opinion of the advisory board, because I, for one, have felt very strongly the same way in the past, but I've had to come to accept it. It's challenging.
Does anybody have anything they'd like to add for us for motion? Everybody good? Okay, do I have a motion to approve Serve Safe for the alcohol server training program as per section 610A of the City of Statesboro Alcohol Ordinance?
So,
Do you have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Now we're going to go back and, excuse me, Dan? Yes, okay. We got awful close tonight, folks. All right, we're going to go back. If y'all recall, we did table agenda item 7, which was the public hearing and the consideration of a motion to approve an alcohol license application for the library, being represented in the name of Justin Clements. At this time, do I have a motion to bring it off the table and back for consideration? Do I have a second to go back to public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So we're back where we were, sir. And if you don't mind, since it's been a little bit, can you repeat your name before you come up?
My name is Jay Dell,
Okay.
and I'll give my contact information to the clerk before we get done. But after consulting with my client, we are ready to proceed this evening.
Okay, very good. In that case, we'll go back to where we were, which I believe Mr. Clements, you were standing at the podium before your attorney stood up there. So let me get back to where we were. Okay. So, Mr. Clements, you go back and acknowledge or do affirm that you were sworn in prior to the tabling of
Yes, I was.
this agenda item. Okay, very good. At this time, then, let's see, get back to where we are. I need you to speak in favor of the grant of your license and to offer any evidence, including calling the witnesses or anything else that you would about applying for the license. I think everybody's got in the packet the license that Mr. Clements, his license information that he filled out and applying for this. So if you'd like to go ahead and address council as to where you're going to be asking for the license, why you want the license, all those good things.
Well, I just want to tell you guys a little bit about myself. I've been in Statesboro for the past 6 years. I've been in the hospitality industry for most of that time, working at several different bars and restaurants. And I think that if you guys can't grant me a license today, then I'll be able to safely serve alcohol to the community around Statesboro.
Okay, do you have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'll-
Mr. Clements.
I was going to go ahead and ask some questions based upon the factors that we're supposed to determine here today. The first question is about do this.
It's okay.
Was about his reputation. I think he just addressed the reputation that he's been here in the Statesboro for 6 years. Have you ever had any violations of alcohol laws as a bar owner?
No.
Do you have any prior alcoholic beverage licenses?
No.
Okay. The location of the bar, how does that relate to traffic congestion
regulations away from campus. I believe that's 600, 300 feet now. It's well above, well beyond that. It's far off the main road.
Are there schools in the area besides the college? How many other licenses are in the trading area, in the immediate area of the location?
I believe there's just one.
And what is that one?
That would be Gaddis Sports Bar.
Isn't that where you're from?
I'm finding
Yeah,
a bunch of
At the old Van Gogh?
Yes.
That is listed as Gavin on the application that's in our.
So that's 125 Gaddis Drive. That's the address of the building.
Okay, I got you, keep going, I'm sorry.
Just, although you've never had an alcohol license, have you ever had one revoked?
No.
Have you ever been denied an application for an alcohol license?
No.
Have there been any other prior incidents that you're aware of at this location?
I believe there was Moonshiners got shut down. Obviously, the location of the building got shut down with the last bar owner in the last place for whatever reasons.
Were you in any way associated with that bar?
No association at all with that bar.
Have you had any other business ventures in the city or violated any of the city laws?
No, I have not.
I believe in your application you did state that you had a charge for serving an underage minor.
Yes, I did.
Can you explain that to the city council?
I was at Max Landing. I was tip certified when I did get the violation. It was on February 13th. I met with the officer on the 14th of February. He kind of went over everything with me and told me where I went wrong, kind of explained everything to me. He told me that he saw in the video that I ID'd the young girl, but I guess I got in a hurry and misread her ID and still served her. It was a mistake. I went and paid a fine. I learned from that mistake, and it hasn't happened since then.
Based upon that experience, do you understand your responsibility and the consequences for serving underage folks, minors?
Absolutely. It's a big responsibility to have, and it's something you should really pay attention to.
Are there any other circumstances in the area of the location for the bar that would cause minors to frequent your location?
No.
Is there such thing as a skating rink or a bowling alley, paintball, or other activities that would bring youth into the area?
No.
In your application, you listed Wallace Corporation as providing you with a loan.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. What is your relationship with Wallace Corporation?
I bartended at a bar in Atlanta that Donnie built. We kind of formed a relationship that way. He's, started talking about this, that, and the other, and this kind of came up, and he decided he would help me out with a loan to help me get started.
Donnie,
Wallace Corporation.
that's Donnie Wall.
He owns Wallace
Okay,
Corporation. Yes.
making sure.
Does Wallace Corporation have any ownership in your venture?
No.
Does Donnie Wallach have any ownership in your venture?
No.
Okay. You have consulted with him about design and construction aspects of the bar?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. But besides the consultation of design and construction and lending you money, there's no other business relationship?
No.
That's all I have at this time, unless y'all have questions for him.
I think at this point, according to my list of directions here, as to how to run this hearing, it will be Mr. Captain Winston will now come up, and I guess he can ask questions of the applicant and present any evidence that he has. So I'm going to ask if you all will just sit right there for me, and then we'll bring you back up. Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And you do affirm now that you have been sworn in?
I do, sir.
Okay. Please identify yourself, present your case, and then when you have questions for the applicant, we'll let him come back up.
Captain James Winsky, Statesboro Police Department, designated by the city clerk to conduct the investigation in this alcohol license application. We got involved basically because of the initial situation where of the loan agreement, the first loan agreement, and if you'll entertain me for just a second, I have copies of it here. this process is new to us due to the new ordinance. So we began looking at the loan agreement, and in the initial loan agreement dated August the 2nd, 2016, it appeared that there was a 25% interest rate on the $30,000 loan, along with 20% of the proceeds for the first year from the business as a part of the loan agreement. That, in my mind, made them a partner for a year because they were going to be receiving direct proceeds from the business, at least for that first year. I contacted the Georgia Department of Revenue, and they advised me that they would interpret that to be the same. Then, through staff of the city, they were notified of the potential issue and concern, and asked to clarify it. And then on September the 9th of 2016, we got the second loan agreement, which is a part of that packet as well. It's a little more lengthy document and appeared to have been prepared by an attorney in our county. In that document, it says that there is a 20% interest rate with no proceeds are mentioned as far as anything else. But if you look at the scheduling of the payments on the final sheet, by my calculations, Mr. Wallach is only receiving 11%. If it's a 1-year loan for 20%, that would be $6,000. And I don't know if it's a clerical error or what it is, but I felt that I should bring that to y'all's attention. And to make note that we had a 25% interest rate plus 20% of the proceeds initially, and now we're down to a 20% loan with no proceeds, but actually only getting 11 on paper. So I felt that we needed some clarification. If Mr. Clements would like to come up, I'd like for him to see if he could clarify that for the council before we move forward.
That's fine. Mr. Clements, do you see what he's saying? That if you look at the payment amount, tell me for a moment, if you look at what you paid every month and you add it up, it doesn't come up to a 20% payout at the day for 96. That interest payout, but.
The initial loan document, I honestly just didn't realize that that was going to be an issue with the 20%. This is the first time I've done anything like this. The second loan document, I believe, was questioned by the attorneys, and they kind of went over this with me. It is 20% over 2 years, not 1 year. So that was just the second one. Draw this up. Okay. Can you explain that?
I can see it. The scheduling says 1 year. Right. Basically what he's doing is like an amortization on the house. So he's splitting 20, no, I don't know what their deal is, I'm just telling you what I see.
Okay.
So each month, the principal is being decreased, so therefore that portion of that month's interest is getting smaller.
Right.
So probably a bad deal for whoever screwed this up, but I understand why they came with that.
Oh, it's about 6,000.
Yeah, I get it.
It doesn't really match what the.
It doesn't matter, but I get the math, I see the math.
I'm in no way, shape, or
form an
accountant.
They're doing a house amortization on a straight up $30,000 commercial loan, and that never the two shall meet. However, okay, well, that's an interesting point you bring up on that one. Thank you. I can see where you, yeah.
I just, with the previous documents and everything else, I felt the council should be made aware, and that way they would have all the information.
Okay.
I didn't think that was something that we could address on a one-on-one type thing. The other thing, Ms. Clements, I guess you come back up. I'd like to talk to you about your previous work history in association with bars here in Statesboro and other cities.
Okay.
Where all of you work?
I worked at River's and Matt's Landing in Statesboro, and at Stagecoach in Fine Art Buckhead.
And who did you work for at those locations?
Rudy's was John Starkey, Maslin was Al Chapman, and the manager of Statesboro was Derek Todd.
Have you ever worked for Mr. Wall?
Not before him, he's still through the bars that I've worked in. I've met him through mutual friends and whatnot being around.
Back in 2014, October 2014, did you apply for an alcohol license here in Statesboro?
I did.
Where was that location?
It was going to be the old Rudy's building.
The old Rudy's building. And what was the name of the business?
Wagon Mill.
What happened to that application?
I withdrew my application.
When did you withdraw?
I can tell you the date.
Was it possibly in December?
Possibly, I'm not 100%.
I have a copy of the actual application with a note from the clerk's office of withdrawal, and I'll pass it out.
This was when?
2014.
Thank you.
During that time frame between October of 2014 and December of 2012, when you decided to withdraw, what was the reason for withdrawal?
There was just a lot going on at the time with alcohol licenses and whatnot, and I just felt like it wasn't a very good opportunity for me.
Were you contacted by another law enforcement agency that was conducting an investigation into some stuff here in Statesboro? Is that the reason you withdrew?
Part of the reason.
Part of the reason. Did you cooperate with that law enforcement agency in their investigation?
To the best of my ability.
Okay. And have you sat down and talked with them at all?
No.
So that's cooperating to the best of your ability. I mean, you didn't.
What's the relevance of this line of question?
It goes to.
This is a former application, and it's an agency that it's not us, so I'm just wondering what this has to do with approving this license.
It goes to number 1 on the list of 10.
Reputation,
Yes, on the reputation and the character
Okay.
of the individual.
Okay, continue on.
I have no more questions for Mr. Clemens at this time.
Do you have anything else you'd like to present?
Yes,
Okay.
I need to continue to go down the list. Is Donnie Wallet in the room? Wallet.
My name's Donnie Wallet, 155 Lakeview Estates Drive, Eatonton, Georgia.
Right.
I'm 100% owner of Wallet's Corporation. I believe that's why I'm here.
Can you please raise your right hand for me, Mr. Watt? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, so you then acknowledge that you have been sworn in.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Wallet, because of the fact that you're the one that is providing the loan and it's not a standard type lending institution, FDIC insured, I just felt that I would like to ask you some questions to the council. What is your previous work history here in Statesboro?
I'm a general contractor. I went to school here at Georgia Southern, graduated at MU, and got into the hospitality business, somewhat such as himself, but I ended up starting a general contracting company, Wallet's Corporation. And a large part of it was due to the places I built here in Statesboro.
When you were in the hospitality side of the business here in Statesboro, did you work at any local bars?
I just built them, yeah.
You just built them?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what'd you build?
Shops, just down the street.
Okay.
A few of the plaza places. Even helped, while I was in school, tinker around on legends way back in the day. So, several places here.
In 2002, you made an application here in Statesboro as well for an alcohol license,
Yes.
and what was that location?
It was just behind what's currently known, I don't even know what it is anymore, but at the time it was Retrievers, and it was a little building just behind there that ended up becoming school property.
What year was that?
2002.
Yeah.
Was it the Blue Room?
Yeah, that was what the business was going to be called, but we never even, I think the property was taken in and received by the school for a new dormitory, if I'm correct. But anyway, it became, it was received under eminent domain from the landlord that I was working with, and we never even had a license or anything like that.
I was under the impression that the Blue Room was the little room off to the left of the plantation.
No, it was actually an old house that sat behind, totally separate property.
Did you have a partner in that?
No.
You formed Lilacs Corporation in 2008. How many 2000, or changed it to 2008?
I actually formed what was Tail Corporation to do the business of Blue Room. When the business of Blue Room never became about because the school was eminent domain, well, I used that corporation, changed it to Tail or Wallace Corporation when I started my general contracting company. So.
When it was Tail Corporation, did you have any partners or business associates? Or
No, I did not. Yeah.
Okay. Where was it located?
What
The Quebec Tail Corporation?
I lived in Milledgeville at the time, so I'm sure the address was Milledgeville.
Are you familiar with an article from Go Around Town in Middle Georgia, associated with y'all doing 119 Chops in Louisville?
In Milledgeville, yeah, it's another place I built.
Who was the other parties associated with that?
I believe at the time it was Richard Toms and Trey Britt.
And you're in no way affiliated with any other bars, restaurants, corporations, or anything that has anything to do with the alcohol license?
Yeah.
And you have a website for your business?
WallaceCorp.com.
And the photographs on that website, or those are the businesses that you?
I haven't updated it since 2012, but yeah, that's how I got my start. So, business has been good. I haven't needed to upgrade it.
So you have done others?
Yeah, but all for Atlanta, Nashville. I work all over the Southeast.
I like that. And photographs and stuff on the website. Go see.
Thank you. Okay.
At this time, I have no more questions for Mr. Wall.
Thank you. Staff, see it, council needs to ask you something.
I'd like to ask a few questions.
Okay, absolutely.
Don, you were subpoenaed here today by Captain Lindsay, weren't you?
Yes.
And you were asked to bring corporate records, which you had brought the evidence of Tail Corporation that was formed and other information that he asked for a certificate of Mr. Wallace Corporation.
Yeah. I actually spoke with Captain Whiskey, he's nice enough to answer my call, and I explained to him that it's been 100% owned by me, as not only Wallace, but the 7 years prior to that, there's been no partners. And for the past 6 years, I've run a very successful construction consulting company in Atlanta, Nashville, and been up there. That's
Just so we're absolutely clear, because it seems to be a big point for Captain Linsky.
Yes.
Does Mr. Clemens have any ownership in Wallace Corporation?
Zero.
Okay, does Wallace Corporation have any ownership in Mr. Clemens' business?
Zero.
Do you have any ownership in Mr. Clemens' business?
No, and there was never an intent to do. Like I told Mr. Winsky, I'm a contractor and an engineer and not a finance major, so when I threw this together, I had no idea that this would be. It was just purely a way to secure the loan, and I didn't know that this would be an issue. That's why we had another one drawn up.
Then you referenced that conversation that we had on the phone as well. You told me that day that you were actually on the way to Atlanta, correct?
I believe so.
Yeah. You said you were going to go by one of your bars where you know Mr. Clements from and everything else. So it's your bar?
I built a place for a guy called Stagecoach. It's Vintage is the corporation is DBA Stagecoach in Buckhead. It was owned for 3.5 years by a different guy that I bought it for, and I just bought it this past year. So I now own another company called Vintage. And I actually, next week we're receiving a state liquor license. So it's in transition right now.
Okay.
So if there's any clarification.
Is that the only other business that you're associated with or company that you own that has anything to do with alcohol?
That's it.
In the state?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm confused. You own Stagecoach,
I do as of now, yes.
and you've owned it for 2 months, 3 months?
That's it.
I mean, I'm just asking, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yes, yes. I built it I developed the whole corner of Irby Avenue and Early Street. There's multiple bars. I don't know if you're familiar with that area of Atlanta. But I helped several different owners rezone. It's what I do, rezoning, the design and concept. It's a bar district in Buckhead. And I had an opportunity to purchase back one of the places I built.
So you have owned it for 3 months, and that's where Justin is, where you work?
Yes, that's how we met.
Who'd you buy it from?
A guy named John Stennis.
John Stevens, okay.
Also a Georgia Southern guy that I met. Georgia Southern.
But you're selling it?
No, I'm not selling it. I
Oh,
just
I thought
bought
you
it
said,
from.
I thought you said you were about to sell
I built it
Okay.
for another guy. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else?
And real quick to run through the other 10, because I know this is getting rather lengthy, but I wanted the council to have all the information available to them for them to make an appropriate decision. As far as previous violations, the only previous violation noted for Mr. Clements, the applicant was one conviction in April of 2015 for the sale of underage, where he was a server in that land. I went ahead and did some looking at as far as the previous history with Mr. Wallace, because I wasn't sure whether it was going to consider this a partnership or not, because it's not a standard loan through the institution, or an FDIC insured institution. Mr. Wallace was arrested here in 1995 for underage possession, and in 1998 for disturbing the peace. And in 2008, he had an arrest in Putnam County, Georgia for serving underage, 6 counts, and those were dismissed. As far as the manner of conducting business, it appears to me to be the same business model from the application that I've gotten and looked at as the previous location there called Moonshiners. We have a limited food service and permit, and the diagram that was provided in the application shows no seating other than bar stools and 2 couches. I have another pack.
Wasn't the kitchen gone from that place?
I don't know if there's ever been a kitchen in there.
Well,
Yeah, there was.
yeah, because it was a pizza joint. So,
It's not Cheyenne.
well, you'll have a chance. But I mean, I thought the kitchen was totally taken out according to the guy that owned Moonshiners. Or rented it or whatever he did. In his limited stay in our fine city. I think he took the whole kitchen out, that was my recollection, so. Okay, but we can talk about that.
As far as the food service permit issue, it says no preparation of food on site. So in my opinion, that would be a limited food service permit. As far as the location, it's the same parking lot as the business that's already there, Gaddis, that is serving alcohol, and it's next to residential and apartment complexes. The number of licenses in the area, in my opinion, are currently 8 that are licensed for on-premise consumption. Those being Gaddis, Big Show Burgers, Southern Billiards, South City Tavern, Venus, Shenanigans, Rusty's Tavern, and Mill House. So we have 8 other businesses there that are already licensed. As far as 6 previous revocations of licenses by the applicant, I don't have any. He does have the one withdrawal back in 2014. As far as the previous denial or revocations for that location, I think council may be aware of Moonshiners and the multiple violations that we had there in that business model with underage possession, overconsumption. We had a girl that got run over there in the parking lot where she passed out up under a car and somebody moved it and drove over the top of her. Like I said, we've had numerous incidents there at that location from when it was Moonshiners. That covers number 8 as far as incidents at the location. 9, compliance with zoning, permitting, tax codes, licensing and fees. We have no issues noted in that category. And the evidence associated with the type and number of schools, colleges, churches, public recreation circumstances. We had Georgia Southern University there, and as well as council and everyone knows, several of the apartment complexes there are no longer just student housing, or they're becoming more family oriented. We have kids, we have school buses and everything else running in the area. So those are the issues that I see regarding, not really issues, it's my job to, in my opinion, to be the finder of fact regarding these 10 items as the ordinance is done. The city clerk has asked me to do that, and that's my job, is to provide y'all with the information to the best of my ability. And that concludes everything that I have at this point, unless someone has questions of me.
I ask that you just stay on the front row, please, unless, did you have some questions? Did you want to,
Yes.
who would you like to ask the
I would
question?
like to ask the captain a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Captain, in your investigation, you seem to put a lot of the previous location of Moonshiners. Did your investigation turn up any relationship between Mr. Clements and Moonshiners?
No, it's directly straight to the location as per the order.
Okay, so he never worked at Moonshiners?
Not that I'm aware of.
And never had ownership interest in Moonshiners?
Not that I'm aware of. It deals specifically with the location.
Okay, all right. We're going to move forward now that we've heard from Captain Winsky. Do I have any other department of the city that has facts or evidence that they would like to present in this matter? Any other department head that has facts or evidence that they would like to present in this matter? Okay, in that case, do I have any members of the public present who would like to speak in favor of the grant of the license? Yes, sir, if you please come forward. Please identify yourself, name, address, etc.
My name is Christian Bennett, address 6319 Bank Street Road. I represent Statesboro Life Restaurant Group, and I'm the landlord.
Okay.
And in preparing this building and going through what we've been through, I've had a lot of conversations with Mr. Clements. We, as part and parcel, have agreed that I would rent him this building, provided that he show me handbooks, policies, and procedures on how he's going to train his bouncing staff and security staff, what he's going to do with his bartenders. All of them, obviously, now in the new ordinance have to be tips trained. I believe that he's tips trained himself. But I just wanted to speak in favor of that because I think this young man is prepared and he's been made well aware of the liabilities that come with this responsibility. To the best that I could provide him, the documents, training manuals, and things of that nature, I believe that he's well prepared, and I think that he understands what the responsibility is, what he's dealing with here. So that's really all I would like to say, is that I've been through that with him, and I've helped along, as you know, owning restaurants and bars myself, the importance of it. Because I've been through an issue in Hinesville, and I understood the importance of training. I understood the importance of having alcohol service statements from all the bartenders. Not on the security side, it wasn't a big requirement with what I have experience in, but it's it requires a fair amount of policies and procedures that everybody that he hires understands and signs that they understand. So I just want to say that I think he's maybe a little more prepared for that than maybe what's been represented here.
Does it say here, what's the lease amount per month? What is his lease?
7,600.
7,600 a month?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Do I have anybody else who'd like?
I'm just curious why that was relevant. In terms of a guy and his landlord, I'm having trouble with some of this.
Are there any members of the public present, again, who would like to speak in favor of the grant of the license? Is there anybody that would like to speak against the grant of the license? Okay, in that case, at this point in time, do any members of City Council have any questions they'd like to ask of any of the witnesses who have come forth today? Any questions? I do. I have a question, Mr. Clements. Come on up. And I'm not saying this to be in any way, shape, or form in your business, but having an alcohol license is a privilege and not a right. And I also understand it's going to be a large undertaking for you. And so you're what, 25?
25 this month.
Okay. And you've got a line of credit of, based on this, 30,000?
This month.
You got a $7,600 lease every month. That's not a lot of money to run on when you're opening up a business. Tell me your thoughts about that. Because there's a lot of obligations with having an alcohol license. It's not cheap. You gotta keep up with stuff, you gotta know what you're doing, you gotta hire a lot of people. It's not a cheap business to run. So that's the reason we ask these questions. Where's your money coming from? How much money do you have? So that you don't run and get in trouble when you start off with not a lot of money. And so that's why I kind of would like to hear your thoughts on that.
And that was the part of it when we were meeting and trying to figure out how much money I would need to get. And the building was pretty much turnkey, ready to go. So there wasn't a lot of overhead there.
Okay.
$30,000 is mainly going to be for licensing and inventory and rent for the first month. And then once we get that, then hopefully we can start generating enough revenue to at least pay the rent.
What about hiring folks? You didn't mention that. How are you going to afford to hire people? You're just going to start paying it out of cash flow as soon as you start?
We have to.
Who's we? Keep saying
I'm
we.
sorry, me, the business.
Okay. That's really all. That's all I have. And so, just to be clear, so there's no misunderstanding. There's no additional investors in this. It's just
Just
you and $30,000
Yes, ma'am.
amortized at $2,794, whatever it is a month, right? Okay. And the only conviction that you have, was it a conviction of selling underage, or was it dismissed, or I don't have anything in my packet that tells me anything about that.
I went to court, pled guilty, paid a $750 fine,
Okay.
and that was that.
And that was, what, a couple of years ago?
A couple of years ago, yes, ma'am.
What was your job title at Matt's?
I was a bartender and manager.
bartender and manager?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I have.
The only question I have is for staff or any of the department heads. Does anyone recommend not granting this license, and why?
Does our police department have looked at it?
They're off.
I mean, you know, because that's the only staff that's spoken, so.
General Chief Brian, Statesboro Police Department. In reference to the opinion of granting the license, I will just mention any additional licenses that are granted at this time will have impact on the police department due to services. Going back to this weekend where our officers did everything they could do to answer all the calls for service that were necessary, and many of those calls for services were at licensed alcohol establishments. That location has a history of being a drain on resources, and we'd just like to point that out to council before making a decision. Any additions will drain resources into place. Any questions?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
That's all I have. Captain Wilson.
I was just following along in the agenda. I would give my hard time to speak. I'm sorry.
Do you have any closing remarks? I guess. Sorry, I'm getting a little lost here in my script.
I don't want anything that I've done as a part of this to have an interpretation that I'm either for or against the granting of this license. By the new ordinance, it's my understanding that is y'all's decision. That the department heads or anything else we have input as far as the staff to provide y'all with information, and that's what I have tried to do. Because this was a non-conventional loan, I went and did some background into Mr. Lawton, because it appeared to me that there's a possibility that y'all may consider this as a partnership. So, with that being said, in my review of the application, if y'all decide to issue a license, if that is y'all's vote, it would be my recommendation that it be a 21 and over establishment based on the business model that I see in this. There's limited or no food service prepared on site. There's no kitchen that I see on the diagram. There's no seating that I see on the diagram. It has a band area, or appears to be a band area, a long bar on the back wall with bar stools, a big open area in front of where the band area would be, and 2 couches and a lounge here. For that reason and the previous issues that we've had at that location with underage drinking, because it's back in that back corner back there, I would just ask that y'all consider making it a 21 over establishment.
It's your turn. I was gonna say, now we'll have to advocate, issue closing remarks.
Just to be clear with y'all, we plan on being 21 and up, regardless whether it's a team event or not. We don't plan on ever doing that in general, so that's that.
Okay. Did you have anything else, Mr. Clemens? This is your time for closing remarks. Good. Okay, so at this time, council shall now deliberate on the argument and evidence presented to determine whether evidence weighs in favor of the grant of the license, weighs against the grant of the license, or whether the license should be granted with certain conditions placed upon the license to minimize any adverse effects on public safety and welfare.
My only comment is it does appear that this is a 20% loan calculated monthly. So it does appear to be a proper amortization schedule for a 20% APR.
Anything that was presented that we weren't not getting to it? That's my question to y'all.
I personally didn't see anything that was grand. Call for not to vote. I think the fact that he's 25 and has experience of serving as a manager and bartender, then you earn an opportunity.
further deliberation or discussion? If not, does council want to discuss at all any condition placed upon the license to minimize any adverse effects on public safety and welfare?
According to the ordinance, isn't he by default, since he doesn't have a kitchen, isn't he by default 21 and over? Like, that's not even negotiable, right?
I think, based on what I've heard, the police department would be well justified in designating him as an over 21 establishment. They could do it, council could do it.
Can't the applicant request it? The consent already has. Yeah.
But I think there needs, for purposes of licensing, he could operate it one way. But the police designate him as being over 21, and that becomes his designation. It would then be a violation of his license to let people under 21 in. So, they may do it by consent and not contest the designation. You may say, I want to be over 21.
Can't you request the designation?
Sure, and the police would be happy to accommodate him.
Seems like he's requesting, the police is on board.
Yeah, so they could make that designation and send him a notification that at his request, you are hereby designated as an over 21 establishment at all times that you're open. And that's all that would really need to be done there.
So I go back, because council, you can do whatever you want to do. So do you want to put an over 21 designation on this particular establishment or not? I mean, you can if you want.
I think if the applicant's request, I think that's the easiest thing to do.
It may
As
be
part of
easy.
the condition of issuing the license. Isn't that correct?
Council wants to make that designation, they can, as part of the grant of the license, or they can defer to the police department to make that designation. We can skin that cat in two ways.
That's good. Do you have something you want to add, Councilman Hill? Okay. Is there any further discussion or deliberation by council before I ask for a motion? Okay. Do I have a motion from council based on the evidence of this application for an alcoholic beverage license be granted with the designation that it is a 21 and over establishment only?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? License is issued. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Do we have any other business from the city council?
Yes, Robert or Van's gone. Can you maybe discuss what might be going on with water drilling at the moment? Got some calls about people getting billing late and that kind of stuff, so. I know it's related to the.
Two handles utility.
Oh, okay. I guess you're on the spot right now.
It is, we are still struggling through the new conversion. We are finding numerous errors, numerous things that need to be corrected before we send it out to the public. We have not penalized the public for being with this other than the inconvenience of not paying the bill on a regular basis. We have issued no penalties, we have issued no penalties. All things inconvenience such as we hope in the next month, and that's being very conservative, to be in some sort of better timeline, the issues that we have not secured. So I hope that you stay with us and know that, as of right now, we still are not going to
And that's really the key there. If they get their bill late, they're not going to be assessed a late fee. They're not going to be assessed a cutoff fee.
Is there anything in their bill, Ms. Sue, that tells them that?
No, we did not. It's almost, we couldn't put, there wasn't enough room to put enough words to explain it all. So the best that we could do was we're in the middle of
mean, when I say explain it, I mean that they understand that they're not going to be cut off, they understand,
When they call, we tell them that.
but there's nothing that's going in their bill.
Nothing in their bill has to be.
Okay. And that's gonna go on for how long?
I know it'll be another month.
I tell you what, because the complaints I've gotten, which have been numerous, are that they get their bill and they don't realize that nothing's going to happen, that they're not gonna get cut off. And the bill comes late, and then they run down there to pay it, and they go, well, we weren't gonna cut you off
And
anyway.
the only reason we did not publicize is because when you start publicizing that they're not cutting you off, and then they get used to seeing that on the bill, then the month that we do start, they will say, well, you didn't do it last month, you didn't do it last month, oh, well, they didn't see it on the bill this time, but they were going to get cut off. So we try not to change much of our procedures as necessary. We want everybody to stay accustomed to the due date that they were used to. And that's, again, why we did not put or do anything to alter what we want to do. But of course, we can change that if you like.
I don't know, there just seems to be that people are getting their bills late, and then they freak out, and they come down there, and everybody says, don't freak out. That's the kind of thing I keep hearing. And they're like, well, I wish I'd known I didn't have to freak out before I ran down here freaking out. And that seems to be the cycle that's going over and over and over, and that's the kind of, I don't know what you do to stop that, but it's causing, displeasure amongst our constituents. They're freaking out. So, what are you gonna do about it, Randy?
Fix it soon, hopefully.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up, Bill. I forgot to do it, but you're right. Okay, anything else from council? Because I did want to bring up one
So
thing.
the official word is bear with us? Bear with us.
And isn't it a combination of things? It's the software plus the conversion to the meter reading, and so we have some issues on both sides and trying to get all those fixed at once, and we're having a little trouble with that. So it's a combination.
There's a lot more steps to the process. Numerous. I'll give you an example. To put an A on an account, if it's 215A South Main Street, which in the conversion to A's, B's, C's, and 1, 2, 3s does not transfer over. So we have to manually go in and put that A on that apartment. If X 12, clicks 12 different screens, just put that A on one address. And we have probably 1,000 more accounts than we have in that.
Yeah.
Issues are idle accounts, which are vacant accounts. We're still trying to understand why they're coming over when you download or billing. Idle accounts means there's no one there, the department unoccupied, so we don't need to bill anybody. We have to manually go into each one of those idle accounts to deactivate it to get it off the billing calendar. That takes 7 clicks, 7 machines to do one. We just did one round, for 600 errors in one round. They have to manually do something more. It's just issues, you know, it's very hard to explain to you unless you're sitting there doing something at speed for what it takes for us now to get through billing and try to clean it up and get it where we can do it properly in time.
And all that in addition to being copied address, so it was really the perfect storm between changing out the meters and we tried to do things differently, but they all just came. We saw the storm coming. Believe me, we had these conversations. And the two have been doing this a long time. And she says, this is what we do good. Let me handle it.
And I know y'all have complaints, I understand that, but
She's right.
hindsight is when you change something, people, and it's in their favor, so to speak, they get used to that and they get excused when they don't pay the bills that we didn't see that yet. Oh, you're gonna cut us off now, you have to cut us off now. So sometimes the less you say, the better you are until you actually confront that person or you talk to that person.
I appreciate what you're saying about precedents for tolerance. I can certainly understand. Is there a way we could communicate an appreciation for their understanding of this transition in some fashion? Just so they know we care, I mean, I guess, as opposed to, and then maybe not, I'm just asking.
It's a thought. That was, we didn't do cutoffs and we didn't do penalties, and
That's a big,
We said we're gonna just lose this revenue for a couple of months, and that's the way it's.
but communications, maybe,
Yeah.
you more.
No, I agree, appreciate the patience.
You got to want free water. Everybody.
All right, no. You down there. No. Like, I asked Rob to speak at, where were we, Kiwanis? And Rob was doing a great job. He started talking about all this money needed. Talking about all this money needed. I said, you're done, just sit down. Rob Ryan is no longer speaking to Kiwanis. Do you have a seat? You were doing so good, Rob. You just went off with it.
Just trying to keep the crime rate down.
Yeah. Okay.
That much.
All right, put candy bars up there or something, but I do think that our folks, and maybe they're doing this, I'm not hearing that they're doing this, because I'm sure they're getting unloaded on, and when people get unloaded on, they tend not to give the best customer service. I get it. But if they can just start by saying, I'm sorry if this has caused you any inconvenience, and let's make sure we thank folks, because I know people come in all hot and bothered, that's not easy to do.
And it's hard to do it when you called us the other Monday. I had 2 people in training, I had 1 person in, I did not have a receptionist or the front desk. I only have X amount of people, and it's not like you can pull somebody from another department and say, okay, sit down here, pay your pay, sit down here and do this. Because
I know.
it's not an instant thing, so.
Somebody texted me a picture of the line, Sue, I know. It's like, okay. Okay.
I'm up for suggestions. If y'all have any suggestions, I will.
I got it. I understand.
All right, anything else from council?
Have any interns at Georgia Southern and need some experience taking abuse?
Taking.
Maybe they come over.
That's pretty much it.
I'm just saying, I mean, they're gonna break sometimes.
Does anyone want some real world
Yeah.
experience? All right.
6 months of that, I'll hire them.
Telemarket, let's go. All right, the only other thing, I just kind of wanted to share with council my thoughts on going forward a little bit now that we do have a city manager and a deputy city manager. One of the things I thought was real important that we do, because we don't have a strategic plan for the city. And one of the things that when we were interviewing Mr. Wetmore and talking about how he'd be held accountable and what we were interested in is, I thought it was real important that we begin to put that strategic plan in place so we can see what we're going to need. What resources are we going to need to fix sewers in the next 5 years? What are all those things we're going to need to make sure that our infrastructure of our city and those kinds of things are going to be taken care of? So we have an idea when we're looking at spending money, is this money we can or can't spend? Because 6 months from now, we're going to need to be doing this and planning for that. So that was one of the things that we're going to be put on this plate. Let's get a strategic plan for the city and see what its needs are. Because y'all may or may not know, we have one of the lowest general funds for a city of our size in the entire state, because we do not have a local option sales tax. I've said that till I'm blue in the face, and the school board gets it, and that's why Hinesville has a $28 million general fund budget. Pooler at $23,000 has an $18 million, 23,000 people general fund budget, and the city of Statesboro has a $14 million general fund budget. So we operate with, compared to what we have to do with the 30,000 plus citizens, and then 50,000 with the heads or in the beds from Georgia Southern, et cetera. You know, that's why we struggle with what we have. So, and Councilman Chance is always very weary about spending what we have, particularly in salaries, and I get it. I get it. So, one of the things that I would like for us to do is a city council, mayor and council, and before January 1, is to hold a couple of meetings in your districts and say, citizens in my district, what are priorities for you? What are things that we need in our district? What are things that you would like to have done? I know that Councilman Jones and I have been talking about recreation stuff as an example of things that are very interested to folks in his district. And once we get an idea of what citizens want in these districts, these are the kinds of things we begin to put in that strategic plan. To do, and I'll do listening on a bigger scope than just a district level scope, but I think it's real important that your constituents have a chance to come back and say, boy, in 5 years from now, I'd like sidewalks here, here, and here. I don't know. I'm making this stuff up. I don't know what they're going to want. But I think if you want to bring back the needs and the wants of your constituents, the only way that we can do it and do it fairly and plan it out is through a strategic planning process where that's incorporated. So wherever you want to hold those meetings, the city will pay to mail out, we'll get the mailing list for everybody in your district and we'll mail it out. And so you don't have to worry about that. So that, you can think about, do I want a nighttime and a daytime or whatever. It's your district, you figure out the best way to get a hold of your folks. And then come back and you can share those things with Randy and with Robert, and they can begin to formulate how to put them into the strategic plan. And when we start talking about budgets going out, all those things will be incorporated. And so that's going to be my suggestion. I think it's time that we have that because I just foresee budget issues with our revenues. We've got issues where our property tax digest has decreased 2 consecutive years in a row within the city. And so I'm hoping that's not a trend that will continue, but it's the trend that we're living with now for the last 2 years. The county and I think the school board, I don't think they've done it officially, are looking at upping their digest just to keep equal. We chose not to. It was a small amount of money. We decided not to up our tax rate to make up for the loss of revenue from the declining tax digest, and that's okay, but that's just what I think. And so I hope all of y'all will be on board and bring those desires and wants from your district back so that Mr. Wetmore and Robert can begin to incorporate them and see what's doable and what's not doable. At least you can say this is what we can and cannot do. So that's my suggestion. I guess y'all can get with whomever about how you want to get your list and mail them out and postcard or when you want to have your meetings or whatever you want to do. To do that, that's up to you. I mean, you may decide you want to send out a survey. I mean, however you want to go about it, just where you feel comfortable that you can touch base with your district about what we're doing and the fact that we really are going to look to plan as a city as a whole, because I think that it's gotten that important that we begin to do that. So that's my thoughts. Let's do one more. If there's nothing else,
Don't serve chicken, it's a red flag.
don't serve chicken. That's it for my comments. Do we have any city manager comments?
At your place tonight, you have a copy of the organizational chart. Robert and I got together and thought this would be a good way to split up the departments so we can share some of the burdens. And you can see under, you know that some of the human resources, finance, police and fire are the primary departments that I'll oversee. And Robert will have public works and engineering, water, sewer, wastewater, natural gas, planning and development, and central services. And this is actually a pretty basic way to split these up. It happens in lots of cities this way. And we thought it would be good for you all to know. So when you have a question about one of these departments, you can call the guy who's in charge of those, and also for the public that if they have questions now, we'll have a better idea of who to call. So we think this will work. We're going to give it a whirl. That one, and then Frank would like to make a comment tonight about a meeting that's going to occur next Wednesday night.
Yes, thanks, Mayor and Council. Frank Neal, Director of Planning and Development. We've been talking for some time now about getting retail strategies in here for a public input meeting, and we have officially got that done now, so if he shows up. So that's going to be Wednesday, September the 28th at 5:30. It's going to be a special call meeting to meet up with meetings law, and it will be here at City Council chambers in City Hall. And we're hoping it's going to be Mr. Scott Van Cannon. He's the portfolio director for retail strategies, and he'll be presenting basically a synopsis of the whole 3-year study he's been doing on the city and kind of the results of that study and what kind of our strengths and weaknesses on retail recruitment have been and will be in the future. And so hopefully we'll have a good turnout. We're going to do the public notice in the newspaper. Hopefully we can get a little plug from the newspaper, get some plugs in here, and we'll also do some email blast to the development authorities, the downtown development authority, business owners, and real estate folks who have a special interest in this. So we're excited to have those guys coming in.
Time again, Frank?
It will be 5:30 p.m. next Wednesday, the 28th. Here in the Council Chambers.
This is the end of their contract, right? This is the wind up, what they've done.
Wrap up.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, do we have anybody, I forgot to ask, anybody that is asked for a public comment? No. Okay. In that case, I think that's it on the agenda.
Mayor?
Okay. Oh, my.
Real brief.
We've written you off.
No, almost.
It says city manager comment, it does not say deputy city manager comment.
Excuse me, could you state your name for the record?
Raise your right hand.
Two quick things. I sent you out an email, and we were notified that we were awarded a $500,000 community development block grant for utility, and drainage, and water sewer and drainage. And this is in the area, I believe, Councilman Jim's district, it's Bryant Street, Mother Street, King Street. Very similar to what we did in the Gordon Street area. Real excited about it. Another good reason, the stormwater utility will be funding most of our matching in addition to water sewer. So there's having that resource allows us to maximize some grant money that we're getting. So we're very excited. $500,000 is the maximum you can get. So we did well with that. We proved it in. We can do a good job in the last one. So
we're putting in, we're getting about 2 to 1 back, is that right?
yeah. I think we're putting in 200 some odd thousand. Yeah. So that's really good.
Yep.
And then the other items, just to make you aware, this will be available doing water and sewer design for the extensions to the industry. That's the industry that's going in Gateway Phase 2. They've been asked by that industry to also do their site design. They called me and asked me if we were okay with that. I discussed it with Mr. Wetmore, also Allen, and I was actually saw more positives in that, being that when you're doing something like this, you're always concerned about timing, making sure standards are met, coordination. Always have questions. So the fact that they would do that, to me, there's more positives. I don't see a conflict there. I see more positives in this case, but I wanted to make you aware of that. They're very asked to provide a price and potentially do the site design.
And our site will still be bid publicly and.
Absolutely.
Let's go farm all the way.
So, that's right. Check with Darren in that case, and that's a good one. That's it?
Okay, if we have no further comments, and we have no other public comments, and this time I'd like to ask for, are you registered?
I'm sorry.
Never mind, come on up. This has been a long orthodox today, so might as well end it on high note.
I'm not sure. My name's Jim Thibodeau. I'm with the Alcohol Advisory Board, not the chair, spokesperson. But I believe I saw somewhere that the drive-through sales was going to be considered on this meeting.
No.
Was not.
No, what Patrice, Dean Jackson said that she would ask, like council to ask to consider that, so I think it would have to come back on the agenda.
Okay.
For a public hearing to consider.
Okay.
I mean, I will say this, I think clearly, and with the situation that happened with Councilman Lewis, I don't think the person that asked for the alcohol drive-through, I could argue was not given a fair opportunity to advocate for that, and I think the fact that Councilman Lewis was convicted of extortion as it involves that individual, it's only the right thing to allow them to speak on their behalf and ask for that. Now, council can do with that what they so choose, but I think it needs to be done in an open and honest forum. And so I believe he came and spoke to the Alcohol Advisory Board, is that not correct?
That is correct.
And asked for that opportunity.
Didn't you present to council?
He never came. No one on his behalf ever came. That's what.
No one ever came. Okay, but he had the opportunity.
Yeah, he had the opportunity.
But he never showed up.
I think given the situation, the right thing to do would allow him to speak on that particular topic, and then council can choose to do what they want to do with that in a vote and bring it in front. And that was my thought, just to clear the air on that whole situation.
Okay.
So that's really all that is. So we'll put it on the agenda, and this individual have an opportunity to ask to come speak to council and clear the air, and there you go. Okay. I'll look at honestly, we typically don't do alcohol on the first agenda. So it
In
would
the
be,
morning.
in the morning, it would be in the second. So just a heads up on that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. If there's nothing else, then do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, please state by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?